Happy New Year, welcome to the first United Ramble of 2014. Now, we're going to do a half-term report. We're 19 games through the season, so this is the right time to do it, obviously. Point one, David Moyes. Guys, what do we think of David Moyes? We're halfway through the season. Has his attitude improved? Is his persona the right persona we need? Does he have enough charisma?
I think for David Moyes, I think the sort of half-term report would be must try harder, must do better. I don't know if charisma is exactly the word I'd be looking for when I talk about David Moyes. I think he's made some mistakes, but he's learning from them. Earlier on in the season, substitutions was a big problem. He got it wrong a lot with substitutions, but he seems to have improved a little bit with that. My main gripe with Moyes is his man management, his statements that he makes, the way he handles certain players. I don't think he's right, and I don't think that's something that's improved during the course of the season. Remember, pre-season we saw he upset Wayne Rooney by saying that he was going to be Robin van Persie's understudy, and that if Robin van Persie got injured, Rooney would be very important. Then, further down the line, we've seen him still making sort of statements that upset one or two players. Rio Ferdinand has sort of broken ranks and come out and said something about his style of picking the team, sort of letting players know just before kick-off. We also see recently the statements about Danny Welbeck needs to train like Wayne Rooney, and we saw Danny Welbeck give a response saying that he does train hard. He thinks, maybe Moyes isn't aware of that. So I think some of the statements coming from Moyes let him down a little bit, but I think in terms of the way his tactics and things like that, and his substitutions, I think he has improved. I think he's learning a lot.
Okay, in terms of man management, Josh, he has got the best out of Wayne Rooney, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got the best out of Wayne. He's playing some fantastic football. I mean, he's not doing it every game, but he's doing it more consistently than pretty much every player in the squad. On top of that, he's brought Januzaj through, and he's clearly done well. Again, he's not playing fantastically well every time he plays, but the fact that he's come through, he's had an impact. That's a lot of credit. A lot of credit has to go to Moyes for that. He's getting players like, or at least in recent weeks, he's getting players like Valencia, Cleverley, Ashley Young, sort of playing more consistently. Again, not necessarily at sort of a phenomenal level, but they're playing and contributing more frequently than they had been in previous months and even in previous seasons, in my opinion. So, I mean, to that extent, he's got to take credit. He's also sort of worked out his central defensive partnership in terms of Evans and Smalling. They seem to be pretty settled and solid for the most part. And he's just been a bit unfortunate with injuries. He's not had Phil Jones to call on, who's been fantastic every single time he's played. Raphael's been having issues with injuries, and Robin van Persie. We've got injuries through the squad, so he's managed that quite well as well. I mean, you've got to give him credit from that side of things. So he's managed the squad. He's getting the best out of some players. He's getting more consistency out of others. So yeah, those are the positives, and yeah, I guess that's pretty much what we should focus on.
The thing with the injuries thing, I mean, the stories that certain players aren't happy with the training regime. We do seem to be getting a lot of injuries from players just training rather than actually getting injured in games, which worries me a little bit. And you have to question whether that is because they are getting overtrained or perhaps the training isn't right for certain players. I know Van Persie, for example, reportedly had sort of an easy training regime under Ferguson where he was able to train when he felt he needed to. He hasn't got that under Moyes, and you have to wonder whether that has contributed to some of the injuries we've seen with Van Persie.
Yeah. From what I've seen, I don't know if he had an easier one. He had a tailored one.
He
still does have a tailored regime, from what I've heard from. I mean, just some random conversations on Twitter with journalists. They say he does have a tailored regime. It might just be that he's just had a bit of bad luck with injuries. We've had it in the past. I mean, I remember we had Rio Ferdinand and Wayne Rooney playing central midfield one year. We had Carrick dropping into centre back. So, I'm usually quite quick to get on Moyes' back. I'm not his greatest fan, but I think at the same time we have to bear in mind that it could just be a case of bad luck. We've had it in the past. No one sort of got well. We did question the doctors a little bit, but I think we gotta take it into account that it might not just be the training program.
Okay, fair enough. Now with Moyes, in terms of his media persona, he's still quite gruff. He's never especially upbeat. Do you think he's starting to get used to life as the manager of the biggest club in the world, the champions of England? Because a lot of the time he's saying things about, we were a bit unlucky there, as though sort of, plucky Manchester United, we didn't quite get the result we wanted against West Brom at home. Do you think he's got the right frame of mind now that he is managing the biggest team in the land?
No,
Not
but if
yet.
you look at the Cardiff game, for example, he said after the Cardiff game he would have been happy to take a point. The Newcastle game, he said we're going to try and make life as difficult as we can for Newcastle. These aren't the statements that you should be making when you're manager of Manchester United. He also said about taking Robin van Persie off recently. Well, a few games ago, I think it was the Newcastle game.
Yeah.
He said he would have substituted him, but he didn't. He was worried about the response that he'd get or the reaction he'd get. These aren't the statements of a Manchester United manager. These are the statements of someone who's probably used to a smaller club. So I don't think he's totally turned it around in terms of his media persona. He's still coming out with statements that disappoint me a little bit and are somewhat cringeworthy. But hopefully, as he's learned with his tactics and he seems to have learned with a little bit with his man management, he'll grow into that role.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I
Justin?
mean his media stuff isn't. I mean, that's not why he was brought in, but it's a big part of being the manager now, especially at a club like United where the scrutiny is so much more intense. He needs to sort of understand that, maybe say less. I mean, until he's comfortable in those shoes. And another one was the Kagor incident. He ate too much and had to get his stomach pumped. I mean, I don't think that to me doesn't medically sit right, but at the same time, if it were true, why are you going to reveal that to the whole world and say Kagor was a bit of an idiot and he ate too much? Why not just say he was unwell and wasn't fit to play and deal with it internally? I mean, that kind of stuff, it does come across as a little bit sort of schoolboy, and it will improve once he fits and feels more comfortable. I mean, he still talks about Manchester United. He doesn't talk about us and we. He's still sort of mentally still not quite in it yet. And it does come across in his media relations. Hopefully that will improve along with the results.
Okay, back to talking on the pitch. Is he starting to get know his team now and build a squad, as it were?
Well, I mean, I think he's starting to know which players he can and cannot trust, and he's starting to know the players. But I think at the same time, it's taking too long. I mean, it's not one of those things where you can say he made a mistake, he learned from it and moved on. I mean, it's like been a bit stuttery. We get a good result and then there's a few rubbish ones. We get a good result, then there's a few rubbish ones. So it's almost as though he needs 2 or 3 sort of lessons before he learns from that mistake. But again, as long as he's learning from the mistakes, I think that's fine. He sort of must know his squad by now. He must know where we need to be bringing in sort of reinforcements, whether it's in Jan or in the summer. One thing that does sort of bother me, he says all the time he's given everyone a go, but I don't think he's really given Fabio that much of a go. He's given Butner a lot more chances than Fabio, which I find ridiculous. Butner's not a good enough player for us. And the other one is Zaha. I would like to have seen him more involved. But other than that, I think he should know his squad quite well by now.
I think he's shown some good signs recently. He's been playing well back in his preferred position against Hull when we got the injury. He could have gone a little bit more defensive. He brought on Januzaj and he really went for it. So we are seeing a bit of an improvement now in certain tactics that he's using and getting to know his squad. But again, it's just the injuries, because we've had all these injuries. Players keep getting a run in the side and they're out. Recently Rooney picked up a knock. RVP's been out for a while. So it's difficult for him to know his best 11 or to play his best 11 when we keep having all these injuries. So I think in terms of coping, he's done like Joshy said, he's done okay. But for me, the real test will be when we've got RVP fit, when we've got Rooney fit, when Welbeck's on form. Who's he going to pick? How's he going to find that balance? Because that was what Sir Alex Ferguson did better than anyone else.
Yeah. Now, did Fergie leave him a bit of a poison chalice in terms of we don't have the strongest squad in the league by a long shot?
I'm not buying into this. I've heard this argument being said many times, but for me, Fergie left him with a squad that finished 11 points clear and one simple sort of stipulation: get a central midfielder. It was obvious that where we needed to strengthen, we needed a central midfielder. Now he went out and he bought Marouane Fellaini. That was his answer to that problem. So I'm not into. I know a lot of people say, well, we had an ageing squad. Yeah, a lot of players are aging. Evra, Ferdinand, Vidic, but then you've got young players coming through. As Yoshi said, Fabio's coming through. He doesn't want to use him. You've got Smalling, you've got Jones, you've got Johnny Evans. So there's players coming through that can fill the positions of the ageing players. So I don't think that Fergie left him with a poison chalice at all. I mean, it's almost ridiculous to say that a team that finished so far clear ahead of the table last season suddenly becomes a bad team during the summer. I don't think it did at all. I think Ferguson left him with a strong squad, a lot of young players coming through, including Januzaj, because he was sort of in and around. I know he didn't get any chances, but he was coming through last season. So I think there was a strong squad there. I think Moyes has just made a few mistakes with it.
Yeah, I agree. Joshy?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I agree with that because basically he's left with a title-winning squad. You know, as a football fan, as a manager, as a professional, anyone in the game, you know, everyone is going to go out and strengthen, and that was sort of his remit was to come in, try, sort of assess the squad or take Fergie. I'm sure Fergie had the conversation with him, and the coaching staff has had the conversations, saying these are the areas we've been looking at over the last 2 years. These are the players we've been scouting over the last 18 months, whatever. And his remit was to come in, make the signings, and take the squad forward. It didn't work that way, and that was partly down to Moyes and partly down to Woodward. He's made mistakes. I think the squad is fine. I mean, look at the way we've managed with all the injuries we've had in the last few weeks. It's about managing the squad in the right way and playing the right team in the right system.
Yeah, it annoyed me in the summer when the pursuit of Leighton Baines was so public that I don't know, like he did that and didn't ever seem to care about Evra. And you think that is a really committed left back, and there are other positions like central midfield that we need to address, and he just sort of wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, the pursuit of Leighton Baines was a little bit puzzling to me because I personally, I mean, I know I'm probably in the minority here. I don't even think Leighton Baines is better than Patrice Evra. He's just turned 29, so he's not a young player. Plus, the fact he's never played in the Champions League, he's going to cost a lot of money. And Evra, as Moyes has just recently said, he is a big character at Manchester United. He's a popular guy. He knows Manchester United. He's one of them players that seems to get what it's like, what it's about playing for Man United, and also he's a leader on the pitch as well. So to upset him in the way he did and just sort of like you said, Sam, disregard him and just so publicly go for Baines and then publicly not get him as well, which is a little bit embarrassing. I thought the whole thing was handled really badly, right up until the point of going for Contral at 10:30 on transfer deadline day.
Yeah,
I don't know what that was all about at all.
Ridiculous.
I mean, Evra is one of those guys. Everyone loves him. I mean, yeah, he's not as good as he used to be, but he's still an effective player. He's got lapses of concentration. It'd be great to get someone in, but a young player in can come in as an understudy, learn from him, and he can still have that influence in the dressing room, in the background, and be Patrice Evra. But to just go for someone who is a big gamble. He's not, as you say, Baines hasn't played Champions League football. He's had a few caps for England, but is he going to make that step up? Marouane Fellaini's finding it difficult. You don't know whether Baines would have. It's difficult. I would have preferred to go for a younger player to come in and slowly get do what Phil Jones is now doing, do what Chris Smallings is now doing, and do what Johnny Evans is sort of doing. Gradually get into the side as the older players are sort of waning.
I completely agree, because if you look at our defence, we've got Raphael, Smalling, Evans, Jones, all really young men. If you buy a left back around the same age, we've got a back four that will be solid for say 5 years. If we buy Leighton Baines, who's 29, in 2 years we've got to buy another left back again, who will have to learn to play with those players again. Doesn't make any sense in my head. Moving on, let's finish this with discussing David Moyes as though this was like an end of year report you used to get at school. So guys, give us a sort of A to F rating on David Moyes' team selection.
On team selection, I'm going to go for B minus. I don't think his team selection has been that bad. He got a few mistakes earlier on, but I think that's justifiable. I mean, he gave Anderson a chance, but then why wouldn't he? Anderson's a player that's won the title several times. He's obviously, spoke to Ferguson about him and probably thought he wanted a run in the side. He gave him a couple of games. He was awful. He didn't play him again. Again with Butner, he gave him a couple of chances, realised he wasn't up to the job, hasn't really played him again, although he sort of gave him 11 minutes against West Ham, which almost proved disastrous. So I think he learned from his mistakes in team selection, and also the fact he brought in Januzaj. He seems to be getting the best out of Wayne Rooney, and he's given Danny Welbeck a chance in his preferred position. I don't think team selection has been that bad. It's not been brilliant. There was a couple of mistakes, City away in particular, playing Fellaini in that role and hoping he could cope with Torre was bonkers. But I think overall he has improved it with his team selection. So I'm going to go for what was it I said? Was it a C plus or I can't remember?
C minus. You went.
Yeah, I'm going with that. So it's not perfect, but it's far from poor.
Okay.
Jay makes some good points, but I don't think he learned quickly enough for my liking. The fact that he's still using Butner, that sort of grates with me a little bit. And and it's just the fact that we had the big issues. We had issues at the beginning of the season and the early stages, and we seemed to turn the corner. We seemed to sort of change system a little bit, and then he'd revert back. So I mean, I can see improvements there, and it is going the right direction. But I think overall, I'm going to give him a C because he didn't, because he didn't learn quickly enough. Hopefully, that'll sort of improve.
I think I'd go C as well, maybe C minus, because it frustrates me how often he'll play a player out of position, then we don't get the result, and he goes, oh, it's unlucky, wasn't it? No, it's not unlucky. It's not unlucky if you play people all over the pitch in the wrong place. There's nothing unlucky about that at all. Now, attitude.
When he initially came, you expected the whole sort of respect for the previous manager, and it was a bit in awe, and that kind of annoyed me. I would have liked for him to come in and be a bit more authoritative, but you could have, understand all of that. But then also he's a bit meh, he's a bit like, oh, that was a bit unlucky, or, oh, we could have done a bit better at this. Or there was that one quote where he said, oh, we were all right other than we need to create more, pass better and shoot better or something like that. And you sort of
other than the football, we're all right.
Yeah, exactly. You're sort of going, all right, well, so I think attitude is a vague one, but I think if you take the way I picture it, I'd give him a C again because it's improving. You can see that he wants to win. He badly wants to win, but it's just coming out wrong, and it's just not quite right. It's not quite fitted in there. And also, you've got to take, I guess, these gradings you've got to take with expectations as well. So, for example, Liverpool are having a great season, but their expectations weren't so as high as ours. So a C, I think, is fair on that. In that sense, I expected more from him. He seemed like a fiery sort of character, one who'll come in and dominate, but he hasn't sort of come across that way as yet.
Yeah, I think a C, maybe a C minus is probably a fair assessment. If you'd have asked me this a few months ago, I'd probably give him an F. I think a few months ago, some of the sort of the statements he was making, the way the sort of the players didn't seem to be happy with him, it all seems to be going wrong. And I think I won't say he's turned it around completely, but it is improving slightly. So I think there is a fair comment there from Yossi that he's improved it, and hopefully if it can continue to improve, we can sort of get into this top four. We can turn it around, get players back, and it won't be the sort of the disastrous season that everyone was predicting. But I think as well we've got to give him a bit of leeway, because to go from a club like Everton, no disrespect to them, and to come into Manchester United with all that goes with it, I think you can't prepare yourself for that. No matter how many conversations you have with Sir Alex Ferguson, no matter how many sort of times you play Football Manager, it's not the same. And once he came into this job, he's been a little bit overawed, and it was obvious from his first press conference that he was a little bit like a rabbit in headlights. He's gone around certain things the wrong way, but I think he's beginning to learn ever so slightly. So I'm going to go with a C. Yeah,
I think a C is fair. I'd like to see him strap on a pair and show a bit of backbone. So it's like the Community Shield won that, and he said, well, this is another trophy for Alex Ferguson. That was a really nice gesture. And after that, first day of the season, beat Swansea, he should have said, this is my team now. This is what we're going to do. I'm in charge. I'm the boss. And then you wouldn't have Rio Ferdinand, Danny Welbeck, Hernandez coming out saying little things about how they're unhappy with stuff. And he really needs to make the point this is his team and stop being so nice all the time. That's my opinion anyway. Now, we'll leave it there, guys. Thanks very much. People, make sure you are subscribed. It will change your life forever. Also, keep a lookout because we're going to make another video, the three of us, talking about what we want for 2014. Watch it.